Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So in this video, we are going to be talking about how the summer of economic hell is upon us, and it's all set up to collapse. I've had quite a few people tell me, oh, you just wait till July 9th and you're going to see the whole thing come apart, that it's all set up to collapse now, and it's just a matter of coming right around the corner. And I think to myself, man, how many times have I heard this in my life? Like, how many times have I been exposed to the idea that the collapse is right around the corner? Just give it a few more weeks, give it a few more months, and it's all about ready to come apart, and you're going to see it happen. Now, I heard this before Trump took office, and that the tariffs that were going to take place on day one was going to absolutely destroy everything that we have assumed to be normal in an economy, whatever normal is supposed to be. And I think to myself, nah, we have to wait to see what it is that's actually taking place, because most people are having the fear, uncertainty, and doubt about what it is that's taking place out there. That's what's ruling them. That's what's ruling the narrative. And when you find articles that says, here it comes, the summer of economic hell, how is it that you're supposed to take that information in a positive light? You can't. You're going to take it in as a negative, and you're going to be very worried, and you're going to carry fear, and you're going to carry a lot of uncertainty about what it is that's coming into the future, especially when it comes to the ideas of how much you're going to be paying for the tariffed items coming into the United States. What's going to happen with our jobs? What is it that's going to be taking place with the recession? All this fear and uncertainty that is constantly pushed out there is how it is that they are ruling the people. They control that narrative, and they push that out there continuously. Like, I keep saying it over and over again, we have to wait to see what it is that's actually taking place with this tariff. We don't know what the workarounds, we don't know the exemptions, we don't know what the deal is going to be, but yet everybody is absolutely positive that come July 9th, it's all going to fall apart. All right, so now I look at things like lumber specifically. Like, I look at lumber and watch the lumber industry very closely. How many people had come to me and asked the question, what are the tariffs going to do to lumber? And I said, again, we have to wait and see. This is not the first time that lumber or that Canadian lumber has had a tariff put on it. We have to watch and look to see what it is that's actually taking place within that industry before we can make any real decisions on what is going to take place with the prices. How many people out there went and increased the prices on their lumber, blaming the tariffs, and then now had to make up excuses and reasonings for why they had moved those prices up, because the lumber didn't go anywhere? Lumber prices are still very cheap comparatively to what we have experienced over, not only over the last few years, but prior to COVID, prior to the inflation. All right? Lumber prices right now are trading at $630 per thousand on the futures market. I just got quoted for a truckload of lumber less than $500 per thousand. This contract, this future contract, closes in 2 weeks and has such an obscure price comparatively to what the retail is that it doesn't make any sense anymore. That's the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. That's what's playing into that futures price. These are the people who have no idea on what it is that's going to take place, and they want to secure that lumber way ahead of time to make sure that if any kind of impact from tariffs, they will have already positioned themselves ahead of time. That positioning ahead of time is causing the price of futures to be much higher than the retail side of things are. I can go and pick up cheaper lumber right now than what the futures price is quoting. I haven't seen it this big of a gap between these two prices ever. I don't think I've ever seen it like this. Like, even during the times of the crazy pandemic era run up in inflation causing lumber prices to go to their all-time high, I don't think I had ever seen such a gap between what it is that I'm getting quoted for lumber and what the futures price is showing. And I could only assume that is being done, or the only reason for that is because of the mass unaware panic, fear, uncertainty, I don't know, whatever you want to describe it. That is what is pushing that higher futures price, because the reality of the situation is so much different. You know, And that's where I find that the economy is operating in this very obscured, worried, fear, have no idea, wait and see kind of pattern, which is actually causing the problems that a lot of people are facing. You know how many people are holding back from actually participating in the economy to get into this wait and see what actually happens out there to make the move? Which again is what I have been saying about the tariffs. If you want to know what's going on with the tariffs, you have to wait and see. But if you're waiting and seeing with your money, if you're waiting and seeing with your business plan, if you're waiting and seeing on all this other stuff out there, you're probably going to have your expectations completely manipulated from the fear and anxiety that you're waiting on. I'm serious about that too. Like, I have no worry, I have no stress, I have no belief that this is going to be a summer of economic hell. I do agree that some people will be facing a summer of economic hell because of the position that they have taken for themselves, but I personally am not looking at the economic hell that is going to be taking place coming into the future. I look at things as the way they are and don't feel that I have positioned myself in a way that is going to be punished or taken down or something of that nature. Do I have position that is going to get damaged? Sure. I'm in the stock market, I'm in real estate, I'm in cryptos, I'm in gold and silver. There's probably going to be one of those positions that gets annihilated in a downturn of massive proportions. But considering the other positions that I'm in, as one goes down, the other one goes up, I'm not worried. See, this is why I think that most people end up putting themselves in a panic feeling, is because they have no idea on how it is that their position is going to deal with a downturn or a major collapse or even just a decent recession coming in. That is where most people end up losing their mind over the economy. They did this, it's their fault, they caused this to happen. And I'm thinking to myself, did you ever think of maybe positioning yourself to deal with all those problems that may come? Or are you just hopeful and wishful that somebody else out there is going to do the right thing so that all the decisions that you have made with your investments will be the appropriate one? Is that really what you're asking for? I mean, because I'm not. I mean, I'm looking at the situation for what it is and says, man, if the banking system collapse, I might want to be positioned in precious metals. If the idea of a Federal Reserve moving back into a quantitative easing or easy money policy, I might want to be in the stock market and real estate. These are the things that I think about and how it is that I position myself for, because a summer of economic hell, that's not going to punish me. I'm going to benefit from that, because understanding that you cannot be in a position for an all-purpose event, right? Like, oh, no matter what happens out there, I'll be okay, right? Unless you absolutely have nothing, then yeah, most likely your life is going to change on a major economic event, whether it's a collapse or an expansion of the money supply or pandemic type era events. Like, if you are not prepared to deal with many different situations that can come, then you're probably going to end up suffering the consequences of that. And this is, again, why I think that most people are suffering with the idea that it's about ready to collapse, or that there's a summer of economic hell coming, because literally they have no idea of what it is that's going to happen. And with that fear, uncertainty, and doubt, they don't know if their position is going to be adequate. And without that knowing or feeling of security when it comes to where they position themselves, then they end up flapping in the wind with all this weird worry and, chaos and idea of failure that comes upon them. That's literally the feelings that come from being unaware and being insecure with your position. And that's what's being pushed out there. I mean, just think about these articles that come out. How many times have I tried to say that the Federal Reserve is pushing fear, uncertainty, and doubt, especially uncertainty? Type in the words Federal Reserve, uncertainty, Hit your news feed. Look at all the amazing amount of articles that will come up on account of that, because that's what they're trying to push. They're trying to tell you, hey, we're very uncertain. And if we're uncertain, you're going to be uncertain too. And if you're uncertain, the open-endedness of that policy can then be pushed into the economy. And this is how they're doing it. Using articles very much like the one I'm leaving down in the description. Using titles very much like this, The Summer of Economic Hell. This puts the worry in you, and now all of a sudden you don't know whether or not you have done the right thing. All right, 10 minutes into this, we're going to keep it fairly short. I've been watching on the reg for over a year now. Nothing material. You have nothing material? Oh, well, that's too bad. All right, it's been the sky is falling and Cantillon effect talk for 4 years straight. Who's saying, I don't know who's telling you the sky is falling, right? But if you want to go off of that title, that is a clickbaiting title for you to then say this is what the video is about, then, you know, go with that, because most people end up just looking at the title, and that's as much of the research that they actually do. If you have listened to this video, I'm giving you ideas, encouragement, the possibilities for you to position yourself in many different fashions, and I try to come out and describe how it is that the monetary policy is impacting the belief system of many people out there, which is the actual monetary policy. When you recognize that, now you can use that idea to position yourself with investments, whether or not to buy a house, whether or not to start that business. This is very useful information if you have turned it into useful information. If you are just sitting there thinking, oh no, I need step 1, 2, 3 so I don't have to think about it because I'm not really that smart enough to figure it out for myself, then that's the problem that you end up facing from the meaning of this information. You have to internalize it and realize that you are sitting in a position that is so much different from everybody else out there that there is no way that anybody can come to you and say step 1, step 2, step 3, because they don't know what your goal is. They don't know what your expectations are. They don't know what your livelihood is about. If you cannot internalize this information for yourself, you will suffer the consequences from that. And it's a problem that 80% of the people are facing. 380 people watching. I love it. Thank you so much for hitting that like button. We got 47 people who have liked the video. Continue to hit that like button. We'll spread this video around. There was a dude here last cast who was a prick about a day trading. Where you got? All right, Brody, beer light, no, he has not been. Okay, a year is a long time to not wise up in your focused efforts, but I have several degrees I'm not using, so I suppose it's not uncommon. It is not uncommon. It is very, very common situation for people to not take full advantage of what it is that they're being provided with an opportunity with, whether it's their skills, ideas, environment, friends, family, business practice, you know, partnerships or something like that. Most people do not take full advantage of their situation. They don't even know to. I think that's what it is. It's not like they're choosing not to. I just don't think that they know to. All right, first time caught you live. You're doing a very good job to break down the most important concepts. Well, thank you very much, and I really appreciate it. And I believe that I am giving you guys information unlike you get anywhere else, especially when it comes to the monetary policy. I really feel that the information that the Uneducated Economist channel has put together with the credible threat theory is more accurate than anybody else's theory out there. And I'm not trying to say that everybody else is dumb or something, or that they got it completely wrong. I just feel that their view of it being from 30,000 feet as opposed to a working class individual who has broken this stuff down from the ground level view has it much differently, and understanding it from a different direction gives the people who are in that working class position a much different view on how it is that they can position themselves for it. You know, I mean, if you're a guy who's got $100 million talking about what it is that you can do with your $100 million to make more money, that's way different than an individual who's trying to figure out how it is that 8 hours is going to make it through the rest of the week, or 8 hours a day makes it through the week. You know, that's a whole different idea. And to understand how the underlying economic forces, such as that of the Cantillon effect, where new money coming into the system separates the rich from the poor, understanding how that takes place, not getting mad about it, but just recognizing this is a normal economic cycle that happens and it's not anything to blame, understanding and recognizing that it is something that occurs then gives you the ability to position yourself for it. And that's going to be very different for everybody out there, especially if you're trying to work 8 hours a day or work a side hustle after your 8 hours a day, as opposed to taking your $10 million and reinvesting that into something that you can have a living off of. Totally different concepts, totally different ideas, totally different views, right? $5 from .1.2.3. .1.2.3. There we go. Thank you so much for the $5. I come for the knowledge, but stay for the bingo. Well, I appreciate that. Bingo's a lot of fun. Bingo's my side hustle. I do it once a week over at the local bar where I call bingo for a few hours to a bunch of the local patrons and, you know, even some tourists who come in who check out the game. So much fun. Great time. Been doing it for 20 years, and I can tell you, man, if I could do that every day of my life, like, that would be my ultimate dream job, right? Calling bingo forever. All right. There was a dude here shooting his mouth about day trading. Oh, we already talked about that one. Okay. Our economy has been falling since the early 90s. Blame Walmart and NAFTA. Well, Beer Light Broker, I mean, I would agree with that. Like, there's a lot of situations that we have been facing, especially since the 90s era. But knowing that the underlying economic forces was sending our domestic manufacturers overseas, causing ever-increasing amounts of foreign production to come in, and with that ever-increasing amounts of foreign production coming in with the new money as well, creates this inequality gap that is just massive now. I don't know what it is that you plan on doing to stay in your position and deal with the fact that that's happening, but I'm changing the way that I conduct myself in order to adapt to the fact that good manufacturing jobs, even if they were here, aren't enough. Like, a good job sucks, and I know that a good job sucks now, and I have to do something far beyond just my job to acquire the things that I need in my life to feel that I have something like the American dream, whatever you want to call that. But it takes a lot of work, and I live in one of the most expensive areas in the entire nation. Having a regular day job, I don't have degrees, I don't have business, I don't have inheritance, I don't have all that stuff that all these other people would think, you know, a person who living in, you know, a fairly affluent area would have. I don't have any of that stuff, but yet I am attempting to make it here, and it's not easy, and it takes a lot of work. So as I hear people say, oh man, all you do is give advice that says work beyond your 8 hours, that's what I am doing, right? That's what I'm doing. When people say you shouldn't have to work that much, well, then maybe you shouldn't. But then I'm doing that. Like, I work far beyond my 8-hour job in order to have these things in my life. And if nobody else wants to do that, well, then I guess I don't have any competition to try and acquire the things that I have in my life, but I have to work far harder than everybody else is doing at their regular job to do it, right? I mean, I accept that. I accept that as the fact. You know, I have to work far harder at my day job and everything else just to have the simple things in life. A house, a car, family. It seems very simple. Like, I'm not asking for all kinds of crazy, awesome, luxurious experiences and items in my life. I just want something that would resemble normal. And it's expensive and it's hard, and I have to go far beyond my normal effort in order to acquire things that would be normal. And it's just the way it is, you know. And I don't like it, and I understand that other people don't like it, and I understand they don't like it when I say it, but I'm not here to sugarcoat anything. I'm here to tell you how it is, how I see it, and how I'm dealing with it, and this is the facts, right? You have to work 5 times harder than you ever believed that you ever would have had to in order to acquire just the simplest things in your life. Cars are not going to, like, cars, houses, those things, yeah, now that's going to be for the rich elite to have pretty soon. That's the only people who are going to be able to afford it. All right, the perimeter of the grocery store is the only place there is food in a grocery store. Yeah, I call it ring around the junk food, right? That's the perimeter of the grocery store, the ring around the junk food. All right. Hey man, you do some good stuff. What's your take on the post-April stock movement and massive drop in the dollar? This, of course, is common occurrence before major downturns, what's your take? I think that what we have seen for signals as far as like the indications or indicators of recession or downturn or all the other stuff, I think a lot of these things are no longer functioning like they once used to. Like it used to be a very easy thing to predict a recession based on the inverted yield curve. And once the inverted yield curve like righted itself again between the 2-year and the 10-year, it was almost always an indication that you would be jumping into recession. Take a look at unemployment. Take a look at the Federal Reserve unemployment and a historical chart of that, right? And what you will see is that there's vertical gray lines on that chart that indicate the recessions. And you will see that every single time that there was a major drop in unemployment and that unemployment started to rise, it would rise right into recession every single time. This is the first time that it hasn't happened. It's the first time that it hasn't happened. We're still historically low unemployment, but it doesn't matter. Just go and look at that chart and you are going to see that every time unemployment began to rise, it would rise right into a recession. This, except for this time. Somm rule, right? Claudia Somm has one of the coolest indicators of a recession, right? I forget exactly. It's like a moving average with unemployment going over one over the other, but I should probably look it up. I can't describe exactly what the Somm rule is, something along those lines. This Somm rule on a historic basis, when you go and you look at it, nailed it every single time. Every time. It was probably one of the most accurate indicators of recessionary pressures coming. Of all things, this was probably one of the best ones. It didn't work. It failed. All right? It didn't work this time. It's because none of these indicators are working like they used to. Once we hit the lower bound to zero, once the Federal Reserve hit the lower bound to zero and the adjustment of the Fed funds rate no longer became the effective tool, but their forward guidance, jawboning, signaling, whatever you want to call it, like I call it the credible threats, after that, all these indicators, they started to fail. They didn't work right because the Fed is not operating in the traditional methods. So as people are using traditional indications of what has taken place out there, the Federal Reserve is using untraditional methods to guide the monetary policy. So everybody is saying, man, why isn't this working? Why isn't this showing up? Why are these things not predicting or being very accurate at predicting like they once did? It's because the Fed doesn't act and operate like they used to. So all those indications, those are awesome indicators for back when the Federal Reserve was conducting themselves in the traditional methods that they had. When they switched, all those indicators which are still showing up are no longer showing up as the appropriate signals for the way that the monetary policy would be reactive to. Like I don't know how else to describe it, right? Most people looked at that and said, okay, this is how the Fed would react to these indicators. But the Fed doesn't use those traditional methods in those traditional indicators anymore. So understanding that then changes the whole understanding of how it is that the Federal Reserve is conducting themselves. I don't think about interest rate adjustments. I do not think about the Federal Reserve and their interest rate adjustments. I think about the communications about those, because those have a profound impact on the economy, where the interest rate adjustments themselves take 6 months to a year or longer before they really have an impact on the economy. The Federal Reserve doesn't do a snap rate decision based on the current environment as if they can react to the current environment with a rate decision, right? Like it doesn't work like that. They adjust rates. It's going to be 6 months to a year down the road before it actually impacts the economy. The immediate impact to the markets, very fast, very, very quick, right? In fact, they know that they have specific words and sentences that they can use to be quickly incorporated into asset prices, and how they can use those specific words and sentences to either create an easing or tightening of financial conditions. They don't need to adjust anything with their Fed funds rate. They can just use specific words and sentences, and it works. It works. What time is it? Alrighty, guys, I got about another 2-3 minutes here. I can go, and then I gotta go back to work. All right, the old indicators aren't working, then something unusual, uncommon will cause the break. Yeah, I kind of agree. I think I would agree with that. That something uncommon or unusual will cause the break. And what I think is pretty interesting about that, when it does break, whatever that is, that break, they already have a plan, right? They already have a plan to deal with the break. They're like, okay, what kind of break is it, you know? Is financial crisis, COVID crisis, war crisis, you know, whatever, debt crisis, what do you got? Okay, that's the one, we'll pull that out. Whoa, here's our plan. Here's our plan to deal with it. They are not going to be making snap decisions, coming up, formulating a plan instantaneously. They already have a plan to deal with whatever situation that is going to come. Right? And most likely, whatever that situation that comes will be well thought of ahead of time. Very much like Ben Bernanke understanding that the great financial crisis was on its way 6 years before it took place. Go and read Deflation and How to Prevent It from Ever Occurring here. Ben Bernanke's speech from November of 2002. Deflation and How to Prevent It from Ever Occurring here. He describes the great financial crisis within that speech and how it is that the Federal Reserve was going to deal with it 5 years before it happened. 5-6 years. They know this stuff, guys. Right? Bank Term Funding Program. The Bank Term Funding Program was launched when Silicon Valley Bank started to fail and all the banking crisis started to kick in. Boom, here we go. We got a program, a tool deployed instantaneously to take care of this exact situation. See, people ask me, are you worried about keeping your money in the bank? And I'm like, yeah, there's probably going to be some liquidity issues coming to the banking system, but the Federal Reserve has already commented on it and that they have tools. They can't describe the tools. If they described the tools and said, hey, if this occurs, we're going to deploy this particular tool, the market would incorporate that into the prices. They would price that in. They can't tell the market about the tools, about the crisis tools that they have. And they can only deploy those things in unusual and exigent circumstances. So until the circumstance presents itself, that tool doesn't even exist. Pretty fun, huh? I'm having a fantastic summer. Yeah, me too, Kirk. I have $600,000 in debt. Ooh, and best move I ever made. Yeah, I guess if you have it into cash flowing assets, it probably is. All right. Thank you for the membership. Right on. Well, I thank you for whoever it is who's gifting out those memberships. I really appreciate it. And for a lot of people out there who have joined the channel, taken that step to take the $1 a month membership to the channel. Literally, it's the cheapest membership you can find just about anywhere. You will have access to the member-only videos that we have done breaking down the Federal Reserve speeches that, in my opinion, give you the best understanding of monetary policy from a point of view that you can then internalize and use for yourself. We break these speeches down word for word, try to have a conversation from this working class point of view so that you can internalize that information. And I really feel that there is nobody else out there on the internet who is doing it quite to that level. There are plenty of people out there who understand the economy, they understand banking, they understand the government, they understand all this stuff. But again, they view it from such a high altitude that it's very hard to relate to, especially for those of us who are struggling to try and make our paychecks get it to the end of the month, you know? All right, guys, this was a lot of fun. I enjoyed this live stream. We have 553 people watching. I would love to continue it on. I see a $5 super chat there. Did I cover that? Did I get that? Who was that from? Oh yeah, .1, .2, .3. Thank you so much for that super chat. I really appreciate the support for the Uneducated Economist. I really appreciate the support that the guys and girls who have been sending PayPal donations as well. So I really appreciate those coffee tips, you know, to, you know, say, hey, here's a cup of coffee on me. You wouldn't believe how much I appreciate that, how much my family really appreciates that. We look forward to doing these videos, to meeting, you know, the new people who, you know, come up to meet the Uneducated Economist. It's an experience that I don't know quite how to describe, but it has changed everything about the way that I am conducting myself and feeling about everything that I have going on in this world. And I just so much appreciate you guys being here for that. I mean, I couldn't do it without you. You guys are awesome. Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know.